Chamlin.
I'm Ben Gherkin.
And we did prison systems, and we're now open for questions.
Did you research prison systems in the United States or prison systems around the world?
Prison systems in the United States, specifically.
Can you talk about the different types of systems that we have here?
The different types are federal prisons, state prisons, local jails, and there's other types as well.
And what's the difference between them?
Federal prisons are run by the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, hold prisoners convicted for federal crimes and detains, and then state prisons are run by state corrections departments, sentence inmates serving time for felonies, usually longer than 1 year, and then local jails are in different counties, defendants prior to trial, and those serving short sentences, usually less than 1 year. And then there's other types as juvenile, such as that.
The majority of the prisoners would be in the state and local jails, and the smallest would probably be in the federal prisons. There's some other small ones like military prisons, but obviously those are not going to be nearly as significant as the local, state, and federal level.
Do you happen to know why you have more state than local?
Because most crimes happen at a state level and not a federal level. Federal levels are usually higher offenses, such as like capital murders and things like that.
Just seeing if you remembered from class like 2-3 years ago. Just checking. I was really happy with that answer.
Have any of the four of you ever visited a jail or a prison personally?
I'm not.
We just got one down the road. You're in
did?
Lacey.
I've been to the YMCA across from Jessamine County in Nicholasville.
Is that a jail?
Well, no, across from the YMCA, there's the Jessamine County Jail.
Okay.
But you've not been in it.
No.
Okay.
I would encourage all of you to go and visit one.
Mhm.
Just, especially since you've done the research on it, I think you have a greater appreciation for it having been there.
Can you talk about different levels of security in our prison system? So do you know anything about the prison that is here in Lexington?
We did not research that. Mostly systems as a whole, like the
Okay.
broad top of the systems, not specific.
Well, I was talking more about like the difference between a minimum security prison or a maximum security or even a supermax.
Yeah, we didn't really research that stuff.
Okay, I apologize, and please feel free to tell me that because I tend to wander and, you know.
I have read in my one of my sources here. It did describe a little bit. It went into a little detail about that and how like the different security levels of each of the prisons. And, it mainly depends on the situation, their sentence, and what they're in for exactly. Kind of determines which category of security they go into.
So what drew you to this topic, or what is it that you want to talk about when you're talking about prison systems? There's a lot of avenues you could have gone.
We thought isolation, specifically solitary confinement and overpopulation in our prisons were two really important things. And another thing that we also thought was very important was how we can create better citizens through our prison system. Because we know right now we have 75 or 77% of prisoners are re-arrested after they're released. And that's something we think if we reform the prison system that we might be able to change.
Okay, excellent. So, Ben, which topic is the most of those that Blaine talked about? Which one is of most interest to you?
Probably the recidivism,
Okay.
like creating better citizens and like moving them into society.
Okay, so what is your best suggestion for that?
I would say I guess for minor offenses, like non-violent ones, kind of not make it about punishment, but why what they did was wrong, and kind of have them correct their behavior, kind of thing. But if they obviously murdered somebody or something, then basically give them a longer sentence, but then also try and help them see why it's wrong and correct their behavior too.
Also, there's organizations out there such as Prison Fellowship, and they take people that go out of prison, they're done with their sentence, and then they go so they can realize that their life matters and they still have the rest of their life to live, and they can be safer in their community and live a better life.
So do programs, especially faith-based programs like Prison Fellowship, have a lower percentage of recidivism than just who didn't go through a program like that?
I would say that it helps them if they get help rather than go back out, because when you go back out after prison without help, you're more likely to go back into prison.
Studies show that when the inmates are especially educated while in prison, that they're more likely to not go back into prison. That was very evident in actually the UK did a study where they said for every pound that was spent on the inmate, it was like almost a percentage that they weren't going to go back into prison.
Okay, so you're talking about UK pounds, I'm assuming you're talking about the United Kingdom?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
So if 77% are rearrested, is that the same percentage for those that create, say, the minimal type of things, state, jail time, all those?
That's
kind of
across
things?
the board.
That's
not
across
just-
the board. It's not breaking that down into federal crimes versus state crimes.
So what would you guys say is the goal of the prison systems?
Kind of like imprison them basically and keep them from harming others. Also a punishment, but then also like rehabilitate them and get them to like change their actions and go back out into society and improve, kind of.
I would slightly disagree. I would say that right now it is purely punishment, and I think we need to, as a society, move forward in making them better people instead of just sending them in. That 77% number, that shows that these people aren't earning anything from that. I mean, 3 and 4, that shows that there's really no, punishment doesn't do enough. It needs to be change. Change in action is what shows that these people are getting better.
Can you give us examples of rehabilitation programs that are currently being used and like what methods they use?
They are offered like classes such as, anger management, even like people that don't have their GEDs, they're allowed to pursue these options. But the only problem is since they're not mandatory, a lot of those people do not have the desire or the drive to want to go do these classes. And by not making them mandatory, it causes them to they just don't want to do it. It's kind of a lazy.
Imagine the students not wanting to do their work.
I know it's surprising.
Is it fair to say this? I mean, up until this point of them being in prison or in jail, where you say it's more punitive and it's punishment oriented, would you say that prior to them getting to that point, that everything that they had in the past was more educational, making good citizens, whether they were in high school, college age? And it didn't work there, so what would make you think that it would work?
I would say this, but I think a lot of that has to go with how people are brought up. And I think people, when they're taught that there is no consequences, the prison is a consequence. I'm not saying that we should make it, some fairyland. But basically, if we're educating these people of what they did was wrong and how they can become better people and live a more fulfilling life, and as a citizen, that would be like making money, having a family, having a house. These things can help them drive them to become better people and not want to live in this lifestyle anymore.
So for the current rehabilitation programs that you mentioned in the United States, you talked about the UK earlier, it's being a little bit different. Are those programs working? Could you give any quantifiable numbers or statistics saying, yes, X number of people that go through that sort of program are rehabilitated, or they're not? Is that good use of money and time and effort?
I didn't find anything about that.
Do you have anything on people that go through rehabilitation that are rearrested? Can they go through rehabilitation again? Do they ever flunk out, if you will?
I mean, that's obviously something that could be a problem, but I think when these people go through this program, they're just significantly less likely. And if we can reduce that number, that can help us as a society.
So how does overcrowding lead to bigger problems in prisons?
It leads to kind of staff to inmate ratios, and so if it's overcrowding, it can kind of lead to like a bad relationship between the staff members in the prison and the inmates, because the ratio is kind of disproportional, and like the staff members can get kind of not mean, but like I guess careless with the prisoners since there's so many of them, and they can't really focus on like helping them out. Kind of, they're just there to just be there, kind of thing, since there's so many of them.
So are the staff members there to help them?
Kind of both, to keep them there, and I guess to also help them out, kind of like correct their behavior.
So I've looked at some research in the past, and I think some statistics say that America has the most amount of prisoners in ratio to our population in the
Yeah.
entire world. Did you do any research on what were some of the offenses or some of the main offenses, or why we might have more in prison than a lot of other countries?
A lot of that is because of drugs, especially when Reagan started the war on drugs. That really brought in a high number of prisoners, because it's not just people dealing or, you know, being violent offenses. It's also just like possession and things like that. And that makes up a large portion of the prison population. And I think if you can make that smaller by maybe eliminating some of those nonviolent crimes, doing some community service, that could maybe lower the overpopulation.
So you're suggesting that we remove jail as a punishment for certain nonviolent crimes?
Certain nonviolent crimes, especially marijuana, because if it's going to be legal in some states, I don't think in other states people should get 5 years or, you know, something else because they have a possession of it when it's legal in other states. I think that could really help bring down the overpopulation and even just the rehabilitation factor. We could use our resources to put more energy into the smaller group of people that are committing violent crimes or have mental health problems.
Is there a large percentage of our prison population that has a mental health problem?
Yeah.
Yes. There's, they did a research to where there is, approximately 79% of those inmates with mental health disorders. That's including those who have already been diagnosed with a mental health disorder or are undiscovered, yet they are showing symptoms with, aggressive actions and actions that are not exactly typical for a person.
79% of all inmates have mental health illnesses.
1.2 million individuals sit in jail with a mental illness.
Do they receive treatment there?
Yes, that is also another thing we were wanting to touch upon, and that was the mental treatment that the inmates receive. It's also touching in with the solitary confinement that we will also talk about, of course. The treatment is more like a group therapy session. That is one form of the treatment that they give the inmates. And another one is where the medical expert or doctor that is in the prison goes into the cell with the inmate and communicates with them there. And there are many problems with those two ways of dealing with mental health.
Are you suggesting there needs to be some changes to how we do it?
Yes.
And what would you suggest?
I suggest that I also did my informative essay on this topic as well. So group therapy session, the way that it runs is that the inmates, all the inmates that are with mental health, go into a separate area of the prison system, which is good because the environment around them, like being inside their cell, is not a good place to have it. It gives them a little more privacy, but the only problem with the group therapy session is that the people in there, the inmates that are coming there, constantly change. And when the first meeting happened, the inmates there's a study to where like the inmates form a sort of bond for the first meeting, and then the second meeting when they don't come makes it a little awkward, and it makes it harder for them to tell the medical expert what exactly is happening, and it could lead to a misdiagnosis, and they could be completely misled in what mental health disorder they have, or they may be so-called cleared for mental health disorder when they're actually not.
How might you change that?
I think, in my honest opinion, the mental health treatment should change to where it's a one-on-one private session with the medical professor. And of course, depending on the danger of the inmate, there should be at least one guard standing by if anything were to happen, if the inmate were to get aggravated or like having motive of possibly committing another crime within the prison system. And so it should be a one-on-one private, that way, so the inmate can open up to the medical professor and seek medical help.
Do you know what the cost of that might be?
I do not know the cost, but that is just my ideal belief.
Okay.
I did research much into it.
To bring that cost down, part of the overpopulation factor is we're paying for all these people to be in there, and by maybe taking away some of those prisoners, we would have the extra resources to really help rehabilitate the people that need it most.
and so I'm gonna divert a little bit, and you may not be prepared for this, I'm just gonna ask your thought on that. So you're telling me 79% or 70-something% of the current prison population has a mental health issue. You're suggesting we let a lot of those people out because they got nonviolent offenders. Are we letting out people who have undiagnosed or untreated mental health conditions that then could cause problems for society?
I would answer that by saying, I don't exactly know, but I would think a lot of the people that have possession of things like marijuana are self-medicating, and their mental illness might be depression or something that can be fixed with a legal drug, and it wouldn't be as severe as someone that's schizophrenic or something like that. And I think those people are less of a danger to society, although still, terrible things that need to be addressed. I think it's easier to be addressed than something that may be violent.
I also share with Blaine. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I also share Blaine's idea. It should be the way that we can get inmates with mental health disorders and like a range of mental health disorders, like the way that they can be released and moved to different areas to where they won't really have a bad effect on society and be able to seek medical help. Like, it should mainly depend on the range of what their mental health issue is. Like he said, depression, and it can be treated with a antidepressant. Well, then that should be simple. They could be let off and have to go to, like, mandatory, have to go to see a medical professional about it, while someone with schizophrenia could be sent to a mental institute instead of a prison instead.
I'll build off Ms. Hour's question and her logic on the marijuana part of it. What type of drug is marijuana? What's classification? A depressant? Some books will say it's that, some will put it in its own separate category, and some don't know where to put it, okay? Would we be able to agree that it is a mind-altering drug?
Yes.
If we're taking a mind-altering drug and we're saying we're gonna legalize it and let people use that, but yet they may already be a mental health patient in one sense. You kind of verbalize that well, Blaine. They're just self-medicating. Are we better off sending them to jail time, or prison time for using it at the minor level and getting it there on the front end, or are we better off letting them self-medicate, do it, ignoring the factor, and then they're in bigger, deeper, problematic, maybe even to bigger drugs and bigger societal problems, and then now they're robbing banks and now they're in there for murder. Which is the better way to deal with those problems?
As a person, we want to help everybody. We want everyone, this to be a perfect world. But let's be honest, that's not the case. And monetarily, it doesn't make any sense for our prison system to allow these people to house them when we could be making money off of what they buy instead of them buying it off the streets. And because they're not as much of a danger to society as these other people. Yes, it is hard because we want to help everyone. But I just don't know if that's really possible if we just keep going at this rate. At some point, something's got to give.
Can you guys clarify something for me? So you're saying 70-something% have mental health issues. Do they have them before they enter the prison system, and that is the cause of whatever they did to land themselves there? Or is it the actual prison system that is leading to the mental health issues?
It mainly is, it's kind of varied, like people with mental health issues that are undiscovered until they go into prison, and some of them are people who have already been diagnosed and then are still showing symptoms within the prison system while they're under their sentence.
Some of the effects of the prison system can also heighten these things, such as solitary confinement. When people are not by themselves, these things can become more intense as they feel hopeless. Maybe there's nothing they can do to get any better.
So how does solitary confinement affect somebody's mental health?
If they already have a mental illness, then it just kind of enhances it, basically what Blaine said. Because they're going in there and they have something wrong with their brain, and then like they're not really hanging out with anybody. So then their condition just gets worse off. That's why, like, we were kind of thinking for solitary confinement, if you already have like a diagnosed mental illness, solitary confinement should be taken off the table, because that just enhances it and makes their condition worse. And for a lot of people, like, if they don't have mental illness, it could potentially start one too.
What are your guys' personal opinions for each of you about solitary confinement in general.